Hello, everyone, and welcome in here to the Powercat Postgame Podcast. Cole Carmody alongside GoPowercat.com publisher, longtime Kansas State sports veteran journalist, and overall legend for getting downstairs to the basement very quickly, Tim Fitzgerald. As we are here to recap Kansas State's 24-14 victory over the Colorado Buffaloes on Saturday with the win. K-State now moves to 6-6. They close out the regular season at 500, and with their sixth win, they are now going bowling. Fitz, we are going to talk about this game. We're going to talk a little bit about what the future holds. If you haven't already, be sure to go check out the player interviews after you watch this live. There's lots of good stuff. We talked to Avery Johnson about his future. Chris Kleiman had some interesting comments. But before we talk about just the end of the game, Fitz, I'm curious your take on the game, because we had some good conversations in the press box, but this just seemed like kind of one of those games that, you know, it marched to the own beat of its drum, but it looked very similar to some of the other games K-State's played this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's ironic or interesting that their best effort, their last three games, was a game they lost. They absolutely sleptwalked through Oklahoma State and Colorado. And look, I've been, since the day they started 1-3, I've been saying, if they can get to 6-6, they salvaged a shred of dignity. As I look now at who they beat, I mean, this is not a season that you're going to want to discuss after this. My question is, what are they going to learn from this? Are they going to just kind of go into the offseason and do everything the same? These are questions I will be asking Chris Kleiman. Look, you weren't going to get any answers today. I really appreciate Mason Both, our colleague with our competition, giving it a shot, but it wasn't. I mean, you're not going to talk about bad things 5 days before the signing period opens. You're just not. I'm going to talk about coaching changes, or he's going to try to keep it positive, because they've done a pretty good job of recruiting through this.
Yep, they really have. It's interesting because you typically would think after a season like this, you'd see a lot of decommitments. We've seen one decommitment from this class. That's remarkable.
Yeah.
And for I understand that, the recruiting aspect is not everyone's cup of tea. Like, there's a lot of, hey, let's wait and see, what they look like when they get here. And I get that, but all you can do is all you can do. And I think K-State's done a really good job, at least recruiting this. In other breaking news here, Fitz, Oklahoma has just beat LSU to secure likely a college football playoff spot. I want to talk about that with you, because we haven't talked about the college football playoff. Maybe that's for another podcast. That's interesting. But yes, you're right. Recruiting doesn't help your results on the field with a 6-6 record. And I agree. I think, shout out to you as well. The first question was, how come there was seemingly a lack of effort, or maybe energy? Looking back on it, was it energy? Was it effort? I don't know. But after that opening drive, they just stalled up until right around the end of the third quarter when they had to turn it on. That was a recipe for disaster early in this season, but it was good enough on Saturday. But yeah, it was just kind of a meh game.
It was. It looked like so many other games that they put out there, including earlier in the season. At least now they were a little bit more buttoned up in what they were trying to do. Particularly defensively. That's kind of how the Oklahoma State and Colorado games were won for the most part. But man, I couldn't believe we're seeing it again.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't believe we were watching this group go through the motions again. I can't imagine being a coach right now trying to solve the psychology of your team, because there's so much going on between the payments and the transfers and the it's very complex now. But I hope they can figure out why this team had such a casual demeanor about it. Was that coaching? Was that the players? Was that everything? Was that a lack of fire in practice? I don't know, but they got to figure it out, because it can't happen again. Kansas State's never been a place where you can cruise through a season. You got to strap it up and play your butts off every game. And that's why the fans are so offended. The getting back to 6-6, some of them don't care when basically half the games you played, you look like you didn't even care, including games you won. Look, you looked invested against Texas Tech and Utah, two really good opponents. But for the most part, you just kind of went through the motions. And we got a question about here, transfer portal stuff. And, we don't know who's going in, if Avery's going in, if Jace Brown's going in. We'll worry about then. I mean, those are great players, but there's been some kind of disconnect in the locker room with the quality of effort, consistency of effort, the want to that K-State teams always have. This never looked like a K-State team to fans. It looked like a bunch of guys in purple who thought it was easy to win. And no, you can't go through the motions and win. I don't know, but they got it done today. I mean, 24-14, but you can do that against, the worst teams in the Big 12 maybe, but boy, you couldn't do it earlier in the year against Army or Iowa State or even Arizona. Yeah, you look at the schedule, Cole, it was a huge missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It just was an enormous missed opportunity. You lose to Iowa State, a team that turned out to not be very good, and you lost to Baylor, a team that clearly wasn't good.
Mm-hmm.
Your other two losses in the conference are understandable. Those are really good teams, but you played really well in those games. I mean, this really should have been a 10-2 season, but it wasn't. Yeah. And the reasons why were bad effort from the players and bad coaching from the coaches. It was a crap sandwich handed to the fan base this season. So looks like we've got Big B in here. Let's bring the big guy in too.
Big B. Big B is in the house. And Fitz, you brought up the schedule. I think it is worth noting that Arizona quietly had a 9-3 season this year. So shout out to Brent Brennan. I think after that game, we all thought Arizona was going to be hot garbage. But guess what? They were not very good when they beat K-State, and they got a lot better. It just shows you the ebbs and the flows of college football. And Big B, as we have started the podcast talking about the game today, I'm curious. We'll talk about the offensive line in a little bit, but what was just your overall takeaway from the 60 minutes of football that you had a chance to watch this morning?
I thought the defense played well all day. I thought that stood out to me that they brought it. The offense in general in the first half, I thought was just lackluster. They just didn't look like they wanted to play. I mean, they had a good first drive, but after that, it was back to the same old, we can't block, the same old unimaginative play calling, just a lot of nothing. And I get it. The field conditions weren't ideal. I totally understand all of that, but there was more that you could do, and we just didn't do it. That's all. It was just uninspired football. Let's just call it what it was. It was uninspired football in the first half. The second half was much better effort by everybody against it. Again, the defense, I thought, did their thing the entire football game, but it was just a better effort in the second half overall, especially on the offensive side of the football.
And I'm willing to give a little bit of not a pass, but you're without Garrett Oakley, you're without Jace Brown, and so you take away your two biggest targets. Now, Jace Brown, they've had time to figure that out. Garrett Oakley got hurt at the end of the game against Utah, and when you take away, literally, I would argue, your only two of your three biggest receiving threats, because they still had Jerron Tibbs, but Jerron Tibbs cannot single-handedly make up for the loss of Brown and Oakley himself. And I get it, other guys got to step up, but I think it was pretty glaring without Garrett Oakley out there. Like, there were times where Avery was looking for somebody where he would normally throw the ball to Garrett Oakley, and there was nobody there for him to throw the ball to. So, I mean, it kind of felt like in the first half, Matt Wells and the rest of the offensive staff were calling a game plan of, hey, well, we don't have Oakley, so we're going to have to run the ball. And it was more of like a force feeding, trying to do something, trying to replicate what worked last week. And it did in the second half. But you know why, guys? They mixed in play action. They brought in Quay Moss. They finally found some success, with even with the inside run game with Blake Barnett. That wasn't working in the first half. It started working in the second half. But I felt like, and Fitz, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like in the second half offensively, they started to get it going. because they weren't so incredibly hell-bent on being as one-dimensional as they were in the first half.
That's exactly right. I appreciate after Utah last week the desire to come out and run, but Colorado was just loading the box and you just kept running into the crowded box. I don't understand. I don't know. I mean, I watched so much Bill Snyder football that I know that if you put too many guys in the box, they immediately had a play you go to. And I feel like that's been kind of a downfall of this team, not really checking out of bad stuff the way I think we're accustomed to seeing. You know, when you decide you're just going to run into the teeth of the defense, Big B, you know this. It's the odds are against you. If you're outnumbered, you're outnumbered. They finally started to spray the ball around a little bit, let Avery throw it in controlled situations. It was really howling out there. He seemed to do a good job throwing into the wind, which I thought was interesting. But once they started to do that, it opened up the defense, and Joe Jackson started to realize I need to do a lot of this work myself. I'm not having the gaping holes I had last week. I've got noise around me, and he started to run very assertively. It's been amazing to watch his transformation the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was really, really impressive to see him. And we've talked about it before, just becoming a running back versus a guy that has the football in his hand. You know, it's totally different. And the thing about it is, we've talked about this. I know me and you specifically have talked about it, Fitz, is DJ Giddens. Remember DJ Giddens as a freshman? He had no idea how to run, how to be a running back. It's just like, here's the football. He ran super high, chest in the air. And I always said, this guy's going to get a sternum broken if he doesn't learn how to play running back. Like, get your pads down, young man. Well, he did. He figured it out. He's like, oh, okay, this is how. I mean, what really probably happened, I don't know if we saw it in a game, probably happened in practice. He probably got popped, and somebody said, see, this is why you run with your pads down, you know? And so it just be able to watch Joe Jackson do this has been incredible. And to see him do it through the season, you know, usually it's an off-season thing when you see guys get better and change how they run the football. You know, he did it during the season, and he had to. You know, K-State, they needed him to be able to do that. And I love that he got better. Now, it helped that the offensive line seemed to get better, specifically, you know, running in between the tackles, but also the coaching staff giving them things that they could do. But I love what Joe Jackson did. I love it. But you are right, though, Fitz. Not enough things like, okay, they got 8 guys in the box. I can remember 35 years ago or however long it was. Oh, you have 8 in the box. We're running the option. And all we're going to do is see where your safety is, and we're going to run the other direction, and we're going to run, and you can have 4 guys over there, but we got enough to block you. We're running option. We're going to pitch it off the end man of the line of scrimmage and take our chances. And I'm not saying you have to do that, but you got to do something. You can't just, okay, they got 8 guys. We know we can't block at least 1, probably 2, because nobody's accounting for the quarterback, and we don't run our quarterback. So what are we going to do? And that's a problem.
It was interesting listening to Chris Kleiman talk after the game. Avery Johnson was limited this week in practice. He apparently was injured during the Utah game. He said in postgame it dealt with his side, so very similar, you know, injury to what he dealt with last season, which hampered his running ability. And he was a little bit tiptoeing, I guess would be the polite way of saying it. He didn't run very hard today. When he had to get a first down, I could think of maybe 1 third down they ran him on, but most of the time he was avoiding contact, and learning after the game that that's part of the reason why. Okay. And I've seen some fans, you know, have a lot of opinions on that. You're entitled to your opinion, but he sounds like he was pretty limited at practice this week, wanted to give it a go, did what he could do. So yeah, I agree with you guys. And on the Joe Jackson topic, listening to Avery talk after the game, there was a question about Joe, and he said that, you know, during the course of the season, it's very difficult for a player when you have specific plays drawn up for specific players. And they never mentioned Dylan in the postgame, but that's exactly what they're referring to. When Matt Wells had an offense designed around Dylan Edwards, because guys, the further out we get away from Dylan Edwards, the more I'm of the belief that he was supposed to be the centerpiece of this offense.
Yep.
And when he was unable to go, when there's so many question marks, and we're like, well, Joe, we're going to have some plays for you, but these plays are for Dylan. Well, then Dylan can't go. And so now Joe has to run these plays, even though he hasn't practiced them. Now they're not able to run these plays because it's Joe. It was just a cluster. And when they finally decided to move on, it kind of was freeing for Joe Jackson. And you know what? Thank God that they stopped playing that game with Dylan Edwards, because you would not have known what you had with Joe Jackson heading into next season had you tried to keep Dylan Edwards around. And unfortunately for Joe, he is going to always be tied to Dylan Edwards because they were in the same recruiting class, because they were in the same backfield together. But you're right. I'm happy for the kid because he's figuring it out and he's turning into a good running back to where, I don't know about you guys moving forward, I think K-State can win a lot of games next year with Joe Jackson as the number one guy. Are they going to have to go get somebody else? Yes. But there's no reason that you can't just go out and find a Trayshawn Ward type and let Joe Jackson be your DJ Giddens. I think that that's probably going to be what happens this offseason. But you're right. There was a lot of interesting stuff said in postgame, but I found that one with Joe to be fascinating. 26
carries, 142 yards for him. K-State had 206 on the day on 43 carries. So that's a pretty good day running the football, Big B. And they didn't even seem that committed to it. It's like, we're going to run the ball, but we're not going to really do anything fancy. It was just like, this is the driest offensive game plan. This is awful. And I don't blame fans for kind of being sick of it. They don't seem to be aggressive in many ways. Granted, the weather in this game dictated maybe a little bit more caution, but it just didn't seem very inventive until the second half. They opened it up a little bit, started doing some different things. But this summed up the season for me. This was the perfect way to get to 6-6. Nothing impressive about it.
No. And well, going to Cole's point, that's the part that fans have a problem with. I understand that you have a guy that's on your team and you have a lot of things built around him, but injuries are a part of football. You can't draft and draw up your whole offense around one running back. And if he's not there, you're literally not capable of running the same offense. I know coaching malpractice is something that gets thrown around on the internet now like crazy, but that is literally coaching malpractice. That we can't run our offense. If one guy is not there, then we have to do something totally different. That's crazy to me. But just even to put it as far as today, you're right, Fitz. It was just like, look, guys, they got a bunch of guys, and I know what it was. We ran all over Utah. We're going to do the same concepts. Colorado is like third to last in the nation as far as a run defense, and their run defense has been awful all year long. It's not been bad. It's not been terrible. It's not been atrocious. It's been non-existent. So I know what they thought. And to be honest with you, it's not a bad thought. You should be able to just line up and run the football right down their throat. They weren't able to do that, which is a different conversation altogether. But in the second half, it's like you said, they made some changes. And instead of just running A-gap stuff, maybe try the B-gap. You couldn't have done that, though, in the second quarter. It's like, maybe try the B-gap. It's wide open. Well, come on, guys. It's not rocket science. Or it shouldn't have to be rocket science. We just make it so hard. And then when we did it, we were fine. It's just like a little adjustment here, a little adjustment there, maybe a little bit better attitude, a little bit more want to, I think. And, you get the job done. But you're right, Fitz. It wasn't overly impressive in the first half. It wasn't. But I do give them credit in the second half because they did come out and play some good football. And again, you look at it at the end of the day, they had an average over, 5 yards a carry? Almost 5 yards, 4.8 yards a carry, had over 200 yards. That's doing something. Yeah. That is good football right there, running the football for what you got, and especially how it started. Because if you'd have told me I don't know, the middle of the second quarter that K-State was going to end up with this, I'd have laughed. Okay, what have you been drinking? But they did. So you got to give them credit for that.
I agree. And Big B, I'll ask you this. I mean, I think you're right. Like they made adjustments at halftime and kind of like I said earlier, I felt like, okay, throwing the ball maybe a little bit, even mixing in some play action, opened up that running game. But what about the body blows? Because that's the one thing that was going through my mind as the game's going along. Like they have to stick to the run because at some point Colorado's going to break. It's like a boxing match. You know, you have to land the jab, even if it's not doing much damage, because eventually you're going to wear them down. And did you kind of see that in the second half of the K-State run game as well?
100%. Cole, you said it before I could even say it. Sometimes you just stick with it. And maybe you get 2 yards. Maybe you get 3 yards. But sooner or later, that Colorado defense is going to show up. That Colorado run defense will show up. And it did. You know, and again, I think we get spoiled because we saw so many explosive runs the week before. And it's like, I've been screaming this. I'm like, guys, 4 yards a carry. And not to you guys, because I know you get it. But sometimes fans don't understand that 4 yards on first down is outstanding. And it's okay to just run for 4 yards. It's okay to run for 5 yards. And sometimes people just think, well, if you're not running for 9 yards a carry, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, that's not how football works. I'm not saying it's a 3 yards, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I go, but getting 4 yards on a first down is never bad. Like in no football world is 4 yards on first down bad. It's just not. And it's okay. And that's the difference. I think you're right, Cole. A lot of body blows, and then we wore them down, and this is what you get. It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
I want to talk about the defense now, guys. Colorado ran the ball 47 times. 37 times. They ran the ball 37 times.
Oh, 47.
47 times. Thank you. I can't do math. That's insane. If you would have told me that they would have ran the ball 47 times, I'd have said, well, they're going to win the game. But I was confused by that because I didn't think they ran the ball particularly well. They had a few explosive runs. But when you look at what this K-State defense was able to do, and Big B, you brought it up, they were horrible last week. And I understand that Colorado is probably the worst Big 12 offense. Now, Oklahoma State's bad. They're close. And Caden Salter was in the game, and he was throwing ducks left and right that looked like you could have a shotgun out because you were on the first day of pheasant hunting season.
Why would you insult ducks that way?
Sorry. Yeah. That you're right. Ducks fly much more elegantly than some of his passes. He finished the day 14-25 and had one interception. That was probably one of the worst interceptions I've seen all season. But Fitz, when you take into account who was out there for this K-State defense, Kenigel Thomas, I'm interested in looking at the snap count. Guy who's hardly played all season was playing at cornerback for a majority of the time. Desmond Purnell is still playing out of position. Asa Newsom, who's just now finally getting to get game action, was playing. We saw a lot of Logan Bartley today at safety. There was a lot of guys out there because guys are literally so beat up, and some of them are out for the season. Guys who hadn't played that much were playing. And for them to hold this Colorado team to only 14 points, including the end of the game, I want to shout out the defense for stopping Colorado on fourth down and not letting them get any points on that last drive. Ryan Davis had the game-clinching sack. I was really impressed with not just how they did it, but who they did it with on Saturday.
Agreed. They're down on the depth chart quite a bit on the defensive side, and they're missing key components at every level. And they've done a good job of picking up. I think last week they suffered without Austin Romaine. I think we saw the value of him not being in the middle of the defense hurt K-State. But I thought they did a good job. I've been impressed with Des Purnell and how he's adapted as best he can to a spot that just isn't natural to him. I think Asa Newsom's shown some really good flashes. But yeah, the defense came up when they really needed it. They got it done. Kind of a mysterious roughing the passer call extended a drive. Big 12 officiating has been on point.
Just awful.
Yeah, some of the things that have gone on around the league today, just atrocious. I mean, last night I think the referees gave Arizona life
100%.
with a review that stopped the clock, gave them 3 points, and changed the entire game.
Yep.
I don't care what you're doing as an official. You shouldn't be officiating the game, managing the game in a way that favors a team. So, yeah, it's frustrating, but yeah, I think the defense played well enough in this game. I think the Colorado offense is atrocious, but they got it done. Yeah, they're 6-6. I mean, that you are what your record says you are.
Mm-hmm.
And this is so true in this case. This is a 6-6 team. This is a team that'll beat inferior competition. But you go to a bowl game and play Missouri, which is what one of the possibilities is.
That'll be
worry about that. I'll worry about that.
Yeah, that'll be trouble. They're going to have to get healthier. If some guys are able to come back, they're going to have to get healthier. But more importantly, Cole, they're going to have to get better. You can't. I mean, look, we might joke about Missouri and all that. Missouri's a good football team. I can tell you that right now.
Yep.
Missouri's a good football team. I'm not saying they're top tier or anything like that, but Missouri can play football. So, and depending on what guys play and all that kind of stuff, that would be trouble. But K-State's got work to do. But look, today, you're right, Fitz. It's just exactly what K-State was all year. Bad for a half. You're like, what is going on? And then good for another half. And you're like, why can't this team show up each and every week?
I know.
And that's part of the problem. And I know that we get in trouble. I said, but I'm sorry. I've been around football too long. When teams aren't prepared and they don't come out ready to play and they stink it up for a half, that's coaching. You got to be able to get your guys up. And I get it if guys are hurt, but guys don't get healthy as the game goes on.
Right.
Like, hey, they're hurt to start the game, so that's why they didn't come out, ready to play. But as the game went on, they got more healthy, and all of a sudden they were ready. That's not how it works, So it's just like, come on, guys. Whatever you got to do, whatever your game plan is, you got to figure it out and get ready to play and put guys, hey, if they can't do something, but they can do this, then just call that. Don't try to call a bunch of stuff. Like, don't have Avery running the football if he's hurt. Like, just don't do it. I get it. He had to run. He's scrambling, to get out of the pocket. I get that stuff, but don't be calling any runs or doing any of that stuff. Just, and hey, they got 8 guys. Give Colorado some coaches a little credit for scouting. Hey, we ran a bunch of A-gap stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe we should run some stuff to the B-gap. Maybe try something different. I don't know. But when they did, it worked. It's just, I don't know. That part just frustrates me a little bit. And then when you say, we were ready at the beginning. No, you weren't. You were ready for a drive. That's it. The defense was ready, but the offense was not ready. Don't tell me that. Don't insult our intelligence and tell me that they were ready. No, you weren't. You were ready for a drive, and that was it for the first 30 minutes, and that was embarrassing. It was.
Yep. The defense kept them in the game. I mean, let's just call it how it is. If the defense doesn't show up, they don't maybe they win the game, but probably not. And so I give a lot of credit. And you're right. It's the coaching, but it's one of those things. It's a common theme where one side of the ball has been ready and the other side hasn't. Against Utah, it was the other way around. The offense was ready, the defense wasn't. Against Baylor, the offense was ready, the defense wasn't. And so we've seen this happen, and it just goes like this, guys. Like, this team, when they play their best, they're good enough to compete with any team in this conference. Literally, we saw it. Going to Utah, you could argue that maybe is the second or third toughest place to play in all the conference. They should have won that game. And then you look at today and the game against Oklahoma State, and you're like, oh my God, like, you don't even know what you're watching. So it's just one of those things where you're right. They're 6-6, and now we get to look for a bowl game. And if you guys don't have any other thoughts on that, I'm ready to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. The Independence Bowl they're in person today. I'm told that Kansas State doesn't believe it'll fall below the Independence Bowl, that if they're available for the Independence Bowl, they will be taken, which is interesting. That's K-State's first bowl game in 1982. They lost that game, haven't been back since. It's a bowl game that's had some ups and downs. I think Shreveport's a little bit more tourist friendly now with all the casinos. The more likely bowl is probably the Liberty Bowl, which is a very well run bowl in a bad venue in an unsafe city that one year didn't have water.
That's right.
I think K-State is going to do whatever's best for the conference, but would prefer not to go to the Liberty Bowl. It's just the dates of it are bad. I mean, I think the game's played on the first day the portal's open.
Yes, it is.
I don't know why a bowl like the Liberty Bowl is scheduling itself that way. No team wants to go do that. I wouldn't think, particularly the teams are afraid of losing a lot of players in the portal and probably need some players in the portal that probably demands their attention. The Independence Bowl's a little bit earlier before Christmas would have less impact on overlap with basketball. There's a lot of reasons why, but that's a Conference USA opponent. So now kind of a crappy opponent you got everything to lose against. And with Missouri, you got a lot to gain if you can play with them. But this team's so beaten up. I don't know how they would contend with the Missouri. They're just such a hollowed out shell of what they should have been right now because so many key players are just gone.
Well, I talked to some people, Fitz, in preparation of this topic, and I'm going to shout out our friend Scott McFarland from Bosco's Boys. He is the bowl aficionado, and so he gave me some information I thought was really good. So when they do the bowl pecking order, they go off of conference record, and so K-State obviously being 5-4, they have a leg up on some other bowl eligible teams. Okay. 5-4 in the conference. That is what the bowl people will look at. So as it stands right now, K-State would be in line in the Big 12 pecking order for the Liberty Bowl. However, there has been some talk about maybe K-State might not want to go to the Liberty Bowl. We'll see. If they were to decline an invitation to the Liberty Bowl and essentially conspire with the Independence Bowl to say, we will turn down the Liberty Bowl, well, no bowls ahead of the Liberty Bowl can pick them, right? So let's say that you decline the Liberty Bowl so you can maybe get picked by the Alamo Bowl or something. That doesn't work like that. So they will then fall back to the bottom, which the last bowl would be the Independence Bowl. And it is a Conference USA team. So technically, if you decline the Liberty Bowl, you would go to the bottom of the pecking order. And because of the way that it shakes out, you would then be available for the Independence Bowl. That is, I believe, the most up-to-date information. But we'll see. Conference USA looks like maybe a Jacksonville State. Kennesaw State was in a battle with Liberty, I believe, today. So we'll see what ends up happening. But another topic of conversation, guys, is you're playing a G5 team. And just because the portal opens on January 2nd, I am of the belief still that people will announce their intentions to enter the transfer portal. And you would think that teams would go into that game with the players that they know are going to be there next year. So if you play a Conference USA team, a good Conference USA team, there is a chance that they have been rated by the transfer portal. So there is a lot of give and take to this. And Brien, I'll throw it to you. What do you think would be the best situation for K-State as we start to talk about bowl season?
I'm biased. So for me, it would be the Armed Forces Bowl.
That's another option.
So
yes.
They can come right to, or the other. And now, granted, there's not a Big 12 tie-in. The Frisco Bowl would be even better. That's literally 5 minutes from my house. So if anybody can pull any strings to get us to the Frisco Bowl, I'll be more than happy to show up and root on the K-State Wildcats. But, you know, the Liberty Bowl stinks, guys.
It does.
Let's just call it like that. It's a well-run bowl, but bowl games, when it gets to that point, are for two people, the players and the fans. And Fitz pointed out on why that experience is not going to be a great experience for the players or for the fans. So you need to try to get somewhere that is a good experience. Look, I've never been to Shreveport. I know I live in Dallas, so it's not that far from here. You know, I think it's like 2 hours and 45 minutes or something. So it's not that far of a drive. Having said that, it's a much better venue to go play a bowl game than Memphis, Tennessee. I'm sorry. I mean, it just is. And like you said, Fitz, it has had its ups and downs, but that would be a better place. But in all seriousness, I have seen a lot of I don't know, people out there or websites saying that K-State would be going to the Armed Forces Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like the date, January 2nd, the day the portal actually. That's a terrible date. It's a terrible date.
Yeah, you can't do that.
But it's just, if that's what it takes, it's what it's going to do. But yeah, it's a terrible date. I don't even know why that's even an option, to be honest with you. Play all the games before January 1st, before New Year's Eve, and get them over with, and give the showcase to the playoff the way that you need to give the showcase to the playoff. What are we doing here trying to stretch this thing out? It's just ignorant.
Particularly if we're going to go to 16 in the future.
Yes.
That's a lot of football. Let's just leave it up to the playoffs after the new year. This craziness. I don't understand why a bowl like Liberty is going that late in the cycle when it's affecting the participants' ability to maintain their roster. It doesn't make sense to me. So we'll see how it shakes out. K-State doesn't have a lot of choice in it, but they can let Liberty know we'd probably prefer to go somewhere else. They've been there a number of times. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But they have earned the bowl bid. It's important for the cycle of any football program to get those bowl practices and kind of go into the off season and have the momentum into your spring semester. So this program, I think we all realize, needs some changes, coaching, players, maybe some staff. And I think we're going to see that. So when that comes to fruition is interesting because of the timing of these bowls. Is coaching moves going to happen before the bowls? Probably, I would think, but after signing day for sure.
Yeah.
So we'll see. There's going to be a lot of stuff going down, and it's going to be a very interesting period for Kansas State football. But for all of you who are hoping for some coaching change, the head coach, unless he surprises us all and steps away, isn't going anywhere. He's not, and he's not getting fired. You don't get fired for this kind of season after all those other seasons. It's insanity. How fans now have this urgency about them that has kind of changed the entire atmosphere of college athletics. And I get it. The money's big. They're professional athletes now, but you are going to have bad seasons, and it is volatile out there. Some people are poo-pooing what Chris Kleiman said. It has gotten very complicated. You're seeing some very good programs hit some struggles just because the talent's been realigned, and now your ability to retain and get players is so much money-based. It's a whole different world. I saw a comparison to, Bill Snyder. It doesn't matter what happened in the past. This is a totally different game right now. It's a totally different version of college football. And the problem is Kansas State has been a developmental program. For years, it's been able to bring in walk-ons and develop them. And those players are going to be stars. But now those players will get offers to leave because of the transfer portal. So you can develop all these players. Ask any group of 6 conference school. You develop the players, then they're gone as soon as they're good. And if the money gets too out of whack, it's going to happen to schools like Kansas State too.
And
it's getting out of whack pretty fast.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, Fitz. I'm going to use Devin Vass as an example. Redshirt sophomore, right? 3rd year on campus. He was in Avery Johnson's class, and Big B, you can attest to this, right? Like your first year, your redshirt, okay. Like that's 90% of freshmen who come to Kansas State, especially under Bill Snyder. That's what you did. You redshirted. That next year, your redshirt freshman year, if you can find time in the rotation, oh yeah, you're a freaking stud. Like you're a dude. And then that redshirt sophomore year, you're playing all the special teams. You're maybe working in. So then by the time you're a redshirt junior and you're a redshirt senior, you are a major contributor and you're an all-conference player. Well, that timeline now is accelerated because if a kid sits for 2 years, if they redshirt, okay, you can sell them on that. But then if they don't play their redshirt freshman year, how many times do we see kids jump into the portal? And I'll use Devin Vass as an example. Like I said, redshirt sophomore doesn't play in the beginning part of the season. Then he gets thrown in there and he starts. literally the rest of the season. And that is what K-State is struggling with, because if you go out and you try and plug the gaps, then you're blocking somebody who might hinder their development. And that's the root of the issue. Chris Kleiman said in his postgame, we don't have another Jace Brown. We don't have another Austin Romaine. They desperately need to find more depth, more guys who are similar. The problem becomes if you don't play a kid, they then enter the transfer portal. And Big B, I don't know how they fix this besides just going out and taking chances on kids who you think can play, maybe not immediately, but pretty early on.
Well, you got to be able to build depth. And part of that is, look, the landscape, like you both have mentioned, has changed. Players do play a lot earlier. That's the thing. You can't, if you want to be a developmental program, then you have to be a developmental program that can get that kids buy in and that are going to stay.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get some of those, but for the majority, kids want to play football. And because there are no rules to the transfer portal, they might come to Kansas State. They may redshirt. You don't play the next year. They may leave. They might even drop down a level. Say they go to South Alabama, just for conversation's sake. They go to South Alabama, have a good year. The next year, they might be at Penn State. So that is the difference, is that guys want to play. Now, everybody always wanted to play, but they have an avenue now to where they can go play. And if they play well enough, somebody will come get them. And I think what Kansas State has to do is they have to shift their focus. Look, that was the thing, how Kansas State got good. Everybody knows it. It's not a secret. They raided the junior college ranks. They raided it and got guys, and you took some chances on some guys, but it worked in a lot of situations. Why? Because you didn't have big-time high school football in Kansas, and you needed a supplement. Well, they found that. Well, the problem with that was everybody said, and they knew, how the hell did Kansas State become good with these junior college players that are from Georgia, Florida, Alabama? Why don't we go get those guys and just bring them back home? Well, they started to do that. So K-State had to change. They have to change again in this case. They've got to be able to go identify players that, even if they're not top-of-the-line high school guys, that can come in and can contribute immediately. You can't just have, if you got 25 guys, you can't have 20 of them redshirt. That's not going to work. That's not the reality of college football anymore. You can't do that. And I've said it before, and Cole, you are the recruiting guru. And I know we got a junior college guy the other day, and that's why I texted you and I said, hey, is this guy a player? You were like, yes. And I said this before, K-State needs to go back to junior college, because the junior college ranks is something that has been totally forgotten with the transfer portal.
100%.
Is that they don't have to go the junior college route, because look, let's face it. Look, I was in junior college, so I can speak on it. There are some questionable character guys that go to junior college, okay? There is no doubt that there are some very questionable characters that come out of there from time to time. However, a lot of those guys can play some really good football. And look, K-State got some of those questionable guys. Sometimes they stuck around for a couple of years. Sometimes they were there for half a semester. So, but that is a route that K-State can go live in again and say, look, guys, everybody's going to this route and going to the transfer portal. We haven't forgotten about junior college. And you can go get some big, fast, athletic defensive linemen out of the junior college ranks. And that's really what K-State needs to start with. I mean, they need lots of things, don't get me wrong. But to start with, that's what you need to do. K-State can go there, and they are there. And it's wild, because I know what people are thinking is like, man, you can't qualify. Kids don't qualify anymore. Yeah, there's still kids that don't qualify anymore, man, for whatever reason or whatever their situation is, but they don't. But they still want to play football. And there's a lot of them, you know, I know I gave them a bad rap, but there's a lot of those guys that never really got a chance in life, had to go to junior college because of their life circumstances that they had nothing to do with, and they just need an opportunity to get out. There's a ton of those that can play some good football for you that you can help them, but they can absolutely help you. I think that's another route that K-State's got to dabble back into, because those schools like the Alabamas and the Georgias, they don't need to go into the junior college rank anymore. They stopped because they don't have to do that. They can go to Charlotte. They can go to a Bowling Green, like Bowling Green, a guy from Kansas City from Bowling is the best player on Texas A&M's football team right now, and so you don't have to do that. I think K-State does need to do that. They got to change who they're bringing in on a year-to-year basis, because what you're doing now, I'm not saying it's a terrible thing. You're just putting yourself behind the 8 ball for what happened this year. You get a bunch of guys hurt, then what? We saw what was out there. It's like, and nobody's going to be as good when you lose your top guy to injury. No. I don't care who you are. But that you could say that for any level of any sport ever. But when you lose 5 guys or 6 guys, and then your team takes a tumble because the backups aren't nearly good enough, that's where the problem is. You got to have good backups, and that's the difference.
It's interesting you bring up junior college, because K-State just recently picked up the number 1 commitment, or the 2 commitments. Hutchinson Junior College, number 1 in the country, 10-0 right now. MJ,
I don't really want to say good things about Hutchinson, but
fair.
At least they're coming to Kansas State.
A little bit different than the Coffeyville Red Raiders, if we're being honest. MJ Graham, number 1 safety in all of junior college, and Derek Sally Jr., number 1 wide receiver in all of junior college. So
I'll take it.
I'll take it. Point, Big B. Fitz, as we wrap up the show, closing thoughts on K-State's 24-14 win, bowl season, and where this program is heading in the future.
This season sucked. I mean, it did. And their job from after the first 4 games was to save whatever they could save. And they did that in a degree. They probably should have ended up 7-5, but they didn't. They should have won last week, or they should have beaten Baylor. But getting to 6-6 after being 2-4, when you had Utah and Texas Tech on the back half of that schedule, that was walking a fine line, and they got it done. So there is something they accomplished here. But Chris Kleiman's right. They got to get better depth. Mm-hmm. They really have to bolster that. And they've got to figure out whatever went wrong in the locker room and get it fixed. I think they just need some more dudes. Some dudes that play pissed off and are competitive in practice. The kind of guys that the coaches got to blow the whistle and say, hey, don't hurt your own teammates. Those kind of guys. I just don't feel like they have it. They don't have that fire. Got a bunch of nice guys who all get along. They don't have, every good team needs to have a little tension to it. And I think they had too much tension in some ways. I think Dylan Edwards is bringing tension. Has done it for 2 years. So Chris Kleiman is trying to pay attention to the types of guys he brought in, but I think he went a little bit too, I don't want to say soft, but without that competitive spirit. I'll be really honest. I don't like the way Avery Johnson competes. I want to see him get pissed off and get fired up and start making plays. But it always seems to be, I got to protect myself, and then we're going to throw the ball, and I might put it in a bad situation. People keep asking me if he's leaving, and my answer is, look, I love Avery. I think he's a great kid, but I don't care. I mean, maybe he needs to go somewhere to be a better quarterback, or maybe he needs to leave for Kansas State to find a better quarterback. I don't know. When things happen in your life or in a football program, they can have the complete opposite effect of what you thought they would. So let's just get down the road, get ready for that bowl game, start asking, Chris Kleiman about some of this. I think there will be staff changes. I think he knows there's no way he can go about it with the same group, because I bet you he feels it too, that he didn't get as good as assistant coaching as he needed to. And I think he's probably realizing his mistakes there.
No doubt. I want to see Go ahead, Big B.
No, I 100% agree, because the thing about Chris Kleiman is he cares. We can get on him and we can question this and that. You're never going to question whether he cares. And if he doesn't make any changes staff-wise, player-wise, that would mean that he doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't believe that. You're not going to convince me that the man doesn't care. So that's why I think there's going to be changes to all of that. As far as the Avery aspect, look, if he comes back, I think it's a great thing. If not, K-State can go in the portal and get a quarterback. Kansas State's not going to have to go without a quarterback. They just won't. Or whatever needs to happen. I personally think he needs to come back. Not needs to. I want him to come back. That would be what I would say. I want him to come back because I think there's a lot to still be accomplished. But if he doesn't, it's this day and age, man. It's just this day and age. Things change. People come. People go. I will just tell all Kansas State fans out there, I've been preaching this for 3 years. Root for Kansas State. And the players are going to come and go like they always came and go. Now they can just come and go quicker. So just root for your squad. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about who's here. You don't have to be best friends with them. You don't need to get to know them. I understand that's all we used to do because they grew with us, but that's not how things are anymore. You just got to move past that. And it's not coming back, by the way. So there's no, I wish the old days come back. They're not coming back. So it's just the way that it is these days. Having said that, I kind of like where they're at. I kind of like this position of, okay, either you're going to fight and the program's going to get better or it's going to go into the doldrums. It's just like what you said, Fitz. It's like one way or another. And either you're going to choose to fight and get better, and it can get better otherwise, or you'll just let the finances of everything swallow you up and you'll just fall by the wayside and you'll just be an afterthought in the Big 12 conference. And I don't think that's what anybody associated with Kansas State wants this football program to be.
I couldn't agree anymore. You guys hit the nail on the head. Worth noting, Avery Johnson, 48 touchdown passes in his career, tied Will Howard for the all-time touchdown leader last week. Did not throw a touchdown today. So if Avery Johnson plays in the bowl game and throws a touchdown pass, he'll be the new passing touchdowns leader at Kansas State. Something worth noting. I agree. I'd love to see some more fire out of Avery. I want to see the fire out of Avery we saw in Utah. I don't know if you guys could see it in the press box, but he was fired up, right? And this is what we've said, guys. Bring that every week. If K-State can find a way to do that, find a way to continue to get better this offseason, you're right. They're either going to make changes or they're going to sink. And if you sink, then changes will have to be made, and it will come at a higher level than just assistant coaches. I think we all can agree with that. So that's going to do it for us. Tim Fitzgerald, Brien Hanley, I'm Cole Carmody. K-State beats Colorado 24-14. This has been the Powercat Postgame Podcast. We appreciate everybody so much for listening. Fitz would kill me. Well, actually, not Fitz. Gilbert would kill me. If you're still watching this, go subscribe to GoPowercat. 75% off until December 1st. Signing day is on Wednesday. It's going to be a great time. Thanks, everybody, so much for watching, and we will talk to you next time.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.